I'm Death's daughter. Anyone whose demise I predict never sees the next sunrise. While I was out having some fun in the mortal world, I got myself snatched and taken to northern Myanmar. Later, they were crying and begging to send me back. Why leave? Everyone here is so talented, and they talk so sweetly. I absolutely love it here. Sweetie, I haven't eaten all day. Could you find it in your heart to buy me a meal? I looked at the old woman, instantly seeing the pitch-black soul beneath her kind, gentle facade. Interesting. I raised an eyebrow and took her hand. What do you want to eat? I'll take you. The old woman's face lit up. Oh, no need to go to any trouble. That little noodle shop just up ahead will do. The old woman led me toward the noodle shop. The closer we got, the stronger the smell of blood became. When we were about 3 feet from the shop, I stopped. How about I give you some money, and you go by yourself? The old woman got anxious, dropped the act, and shoved me forward, making me stumble. At the same time, a few burly men opened the door and quickly pulled me inside. A cloth soaked in chloroform was pressed over my mouth and nose. But they didn't know that stuff had no effect on me. Because, well, I'm not exactly human. I pretended to pass out. They carried me to a small room and carelessly threw me into a cage. As the lock clicked shut, I slowly opened my eyes and surveyed my surroundings. A short man openly leered at me, giving me a sleazy once-over. Haven't seen goods this fine in a long time, he chuckled. Looks like a damn angel. Granny Smith, you've done a great job. Granny Smith cackled, glanced at me in the cage and rubbed her hands together. Don't blame me, girlie. I'm just trying to make a living. Don't worry, if you behave, you'll suffer less. I smiled faintly, met Granny Smith's gaze and asked, You're Granny Smith, right? After she confirmed, I stared intently into her eyes, my own dark pupils like bottomless, icy pools. I suggest you go home and get your affairs in order. You won't see tomorrow's sun. Everyone roared with laughter, completely dismissing my words. Granny Smith even kicked the cage hard. Trying to bluff me, little girl? You're too green. I smiled again, then looked at the burly man behind her. And you, sir? What's your name? The thug licked his lips. What, trying to play games with me? You got a death wish or something? If you weren't worth good money, I'd have had my way with you already. With that, the group swaggered off, and the room plunged back into darkness. I narrowed my eyes, silently savoring it all. Ah, darkness. My most familiar environment. Because I came from the dark. Anyone whose name I speak is not long for this world. Soft whimpers echoed in the room. Only then did I notice that the surrounding cages also held young girls. One of them timidly spoke to me. Hi, I'm Annie. I was wondering, will Granny Smith really die tomorrow? I closed my eyes, feigning sleep, and said lazily, You'll find out tomorrow. The next day, while everyone was still asleep, the main door was kicked open. The thug from yesterday barged in with a large group, heading straight for me. You little bitch, you were actually right. Granny Smith got hit by a truck first thing this morning. Died on the spot. I still don't believe this crap. Listen up, my name's Vince. If you've got the balls, curse me to death too. I looked at Vince calmly, as if he were a petulant child. Well, that's a unique request. Since you insist, I'll grant your wish. Vince, you will burn to death today. Vince stared at me, his face contorted with rage, his hands gripping the iron bars of the cage. If I'm not dead by tonight, I'm gonna come back and make you scream, you little slut. After that, Vince's men tossed a bowl of rice in front of each cage, and then noisily left. I watched the girls' reactions with interest. Most looked hopeless, though some gritted their teeth and cursed Granny Smith, saying she got what she deserved. As for Annie from yesterday, she gave half of her meager portion of rice to a younger girl. She looked at the little girl with such tenderness. I copied her, pushing my bowl to the girl next to me. The bowls were passed around, everyone sharing until finally, we'd all had enough to eat. Once full, some started to share their stories. One was tricked because she was raised by her grandmother and couldn't bear to see an old person suffer, her sympathy exploited. Another had just gotten her college acceptance letter and was duped by Granny Smith on her way to register. One even had a fiancé and was about to get married, lured here with the promise of a job. They told their stories one by one. Only Annie and I hadn't spoken. My name is Hella. The moment I spoke, the door opened again. Yes, not kicked this time, but opened gently. It wasn't Vince but his underlings. They respectfully opened my cage. Our little, mistress, who on earth are you? How are your words so damn accurate? The boss was drunk driving last night, and his car just exploded. Burned alive. I stood up, stretched, looked around and said, I'm a bit strange. Ever since I was little, if I say someone will die, they die. The henchman stared at me with terror, as if I were some kind of monster. Please, ma'am, just go. We beg you, forgive our transgressions. Forget about us, scum. A whole bunch of them dropped to their knees in front of me, clattering. Some of the more cowardly ones wet their pants. I looked up, pretending to think. Who was involved in kidnapping me that day? The few I singled out went deathly pale and started kowtowing, banging their heads on the floor. Seeing them all bloody, I couldn't be bothered to mess with them anymore. I nudged the leader with my toe. Where were you originally planning to sell me? The man stammered, in northern Myanmar. I nodded. All right. Then let all these girls out of their cages. I'll go with you to northern Myanmar. The man burst into tears. Oh God, ma'am. We'll release everyone, just please don't go with us, okay? I frowned. Let me tell you, I'm not happy. And when I'm not happy, people die. The man was a blubbering mess, completely ignoring his soaked pants. He got up and released every girl from her cage. Annie came over, gently took my hand, and asked, Hella, can I go to northern Myanmar with you? I squeezed her hand back. You can. Annie's eyes widened. You're not going to ask me why? I just smiled without saying a word. From the moment I entered this room, I'd smelled the faint scent of blood on Annie. But unlike Granny Smith and Vince, Annie's soul was incredibly pure, even faintly glowing with a golden light. This meant she carried great virtue. In this world, who would be stained with blood yet possess such virtue? The answer was obvious. Annie and I boarded the boat to northern Myanmar together. Sweet old home, here I come. Stepping onto the soil of northern Myanmar, I was hit by a wave of corruption and a grim, deathly aura. I closed my eyes and took a deep breath. Feeling refreshed already. Vince's men approached me trembling. Ma'am, a guy named Leo will be here to pick up the goods. If there's nothing else, we'll be going. You can handle the transaction yourself. We don't want any of the money, you keep it all. Terrified they'd die if they stayed a second longer, the goons turned and scrambled back onto their boat, fleeing. Annie and I let out a sigh of relief and waited there for Leo to arrive. Soon, a fat man in a leopard print t-shirt and a thick gold chain showed up at the docks. He wandered around the docks a bit, occasionally eyeing Annie and me with ill intent. I couldn't wait any longer. I grabbed his sleeve. Hey fatty, are you Leo here for the pickup? Yeah. The fat man stared at me, stunned. Are you one of Vince's new recruits? I thought you were the merchandise. I nodded. That's right. I am the merchandise this time. Annie immediately stood up. I'm merchandise too. Leo's eyes nearly popped out of his head. Well, I'll be. Been in this business for years, and this is the first time I've seen merchandise selling itself. All right, let's go then. Leo opened the back of a truck, and Annie and I climbed in. Inside, the dark space was filled with many other girls like us. There were also some good-looking young boys. But unlike Annie and me, everyone else was bound hand and foot. Annie gripped my hand tightly. Hella, let's free them all. I scanned the group. Do you dare to jump from the truck? Some timidly said yes, others remained silent. I placed my hand on the cold truck door and released a tiny bit of my power. Soon, a large piece of the door corroded away. Annie came over, gave it a hard push, and the door broke open. Light streamed in, and the kids in the truck looked surprised and relieved. I broke their ropes. Annie reassured them. The truck is driving through a field now. It's not going fast, and the grass will cushion your fall. You won't get hurt too badly. A few brave boys jumped first, rolling on the ground and landing in the nearby grass. The girls hesitated, but eventually closed their eyes and jumped too. Once the truck was empty, Annie looked at me with an increasingly complex expression. Hella, where do these powers of yours come from? I smiled. If I told you I wasn't human, you wouldn't drag me off to some research lab, would you? No, Annie said immediately. We're partners. I didn't doubt Annie at all, because as she spoke, the virtue in her soul shone brightly. When we reached the destination, Leo saw the damaged door and the empty truck and absolutely lost it. He lunged forward, grabbed my throat, and screamed, "You bitch!" I kicked him away in disgust, feeling like my shoe had picked up some dirt. You didn't even pay for Annie and me. Consider those kids your payment. Now get lost, you fat pig. Don't just lie there like a stuck hog. I clapped my hands together, took Annie's hand, and strolled confidently into the club. Leo, unable to beat me, could only curse under his breath as he led me to a heavily made-up woman. Madame Rose, there are only two this time, but the quality is good. Madame Rose gave me a satisfied once-over. Leo added obsequiously, especially this one. Looks like an angel, but she's got a temper. The big boss should like her. I didn't know who this big boss was. They just led me away. Madame Rose had us cleaned up and gave us 2 sets of clothes. Annie got a pure white, gauzy dress, while I got a black leather getup with straps. I frowned. Mine was okay, but Annie's dress was a bit too sheer. I stopped Madame Rose, jerked my chin towards Annie, and said, "Get her something else." Madame Rose scoffed, pushing my hand away. "Little girl, you don't get to make demands here. Besides, did you think you came here to be worshipped like queens? Face reality. You're just toys for the pleasure of important men." She's so scrawny. If she doesn't wear something revealing, how can she fetch a good price? Ugh, my fists were clenching again. I stared at Madame Rose. I already found out. Your real name is Rosie Wong, isn't it? Rosie Wong, in less than half an hour, you will die in some important man's bed. Leo pointed at my nose and yelled, "You damn brat, daring to curse Madame Rose. You must have a death wish." While yelling, he ordered Madame Rose's men to beat me. "Teach this girl a lesson. Show her what the rules are." Madame Rose raised a hand, stopping her men. Then she stepped forward and grabbed my chin. "Girlie, I was born tough. Anyone who's tried to jinx me has met a bad end." She hadn't even finished speaking when a battered, scantily clad girl burst in. "Madame Rose, the man I was with is on a drunken rampage. He shot several of the girls. You have to come quick." Madame Rose released my chin, snapped, "I'll deal with you later," and rushed off with her people. In less than half an hour, the entire club was in chaos, because Madame Rose had indeed died in that man's bed. Soon, another girl brought a white gauzy dress. She dropped it and stumbled away, terrified to stay a second longer. Others passing our room would immediately look away if they accidentally met my gaze, as if they'd seen a ghost. I went over, pleased with this much more modest dress, held it up to Annie and said, "This suits you much better." Annie looked at me worriedly. "Are we really going to be sold to those so-called important men?" I squeezed her hand. "Don't worry, I'm here. Nothing will happen to you. Besides, I'm actually looking forward to it. These big shots in northern Myanmar must have a lot of innocent blood on their hands, right? Their souls must be delicious." Everyone feared me like a monster, except for that idiot Leo, who still tried to boss me around. On the day of the auction, he had his men put Annie and me into 2 transparent crystal boxes, placed on separate display stands with dramatic lighting. Annie looked like a pure, innocent angel, while my half-smiling, half-sneering expression, hidden in the shadows, made me look like a little demon observing them. "Gentlemen, take a good look. We only have 2 items on display this time, but they are top quality." When the men below saw Annie, their faces lit up with excitement and a disturbing, eager desire to destroy. But when I was revealed, the chattering crowd instantly fell silent. People started whispering, "That outfit. It's clearly tailored to his taste. Who would dare bid on this one? Who'd dare try to snatch someone from him? That's a death wish. This Leo is such a suck-up. His intentions are practically spilling out. Such a shame. She looks like a goddess, but if she falls into his hands, who knows if she'll survive the night." I lounged lazily in the crystal box, all their whispers reaching my ears. This him they were talking about sounded like an interesting character. Before I could think too much, a spotlight hit my crystal box, and Leo started the bidding. No one dared to bid. As the room remained silent, the smile on Leo's face grew wider and wider, until a voice declared, "I'll take this one." Leo's smile became almost fawning. Everyone turned towards the source of the voice. A chorus of greetings rippled through the crowd. "Boss Shaw." I watched with interest as this tall man walked towards me. Unlike the other's dark souls, this man's soul was so faint it was almost gone. This meant his humanity was also on the verge of disappearing. I slowly rose from the crystal box, leaped, and landed steadily in his arms. He looked at me with an amused smile. "Interesting." I chuckled. "You just wait and see. I'm very interesting." Since these ants considered him the king of northern Myanmar, then I, through this king, would crush all of northern Myanmar. I would seek justice for the lost souls of this land. Boss Shaw, holding me, turned to leave, but I tugged his sleeve. I pointed to Annie. "I want to take her too." Boss Shaw looked at Annie searchingly, then turned back to me with a gentle smile. "All right, whatever you want." His tone was like someone teasing a playful kitten. I scoffed inwardly. "We'll see who the master is." Nestled in Boss Shaw's arms, I smirked and whispered, "Leo, in 20 minutes, will die from having his throat slit by a sharp object." Boss Shaw looked down at me. "Little thing. What are you muttering about?" I looked up, giving Boss Shaw an innocent smile. "Nothing, just admiring your pecs. They're well defined." This clearly pleased him. His arms around me tightened. "Looks like I've really found a treasure." Boss Shaw had some urgent business, so he instructed his men to take Annie and me back. Annie gripped my arm tightly, her body trembling slightly. She pretended to be terrified and flustered, hugging me and whispering in my ear so low no one else could hear. "Hella, you absolutely have to be careful with this Shaw guy. No one, no matter how close, knows his real name or where he came from. He controls most of northern Myanmar's lifelines. He's cunning, and his methods are incredibly cruel and vicious. One wrong move, and we might not even leave behind intact corpses." I patted her back twice to show I understood. Then we sat quietly in the car, not speaking. We reached our destination, an ancient yet opulent bunker. The doorposts were made of gold mixed with brass. I touched the tiles, seeing the blood and tears of countless wronged souls. One of Boss Shaw's men held 2 syringes, smiling maliciously at Annie and me. "The boss's orders. Everyone gets a shot before going in." I looked relaxed. Before he even finished speaking, I eagerly took one and injected myself. I turned and saw Annie's reluctant face. "Don't worry," I reassured her. "I'll give you yours. It'll be fine." Using a blind spot, I placed my finger under Annie's arm, and the entire dose went into my finger instead. The guard didn't notice anything amiss and let us in. As soon as we rounded the corner, Annie grabbed me, checked me over and asked, "Hella, are you okay?" I said casually, "Don't worry, I'm fine." For the first time, Annie looked fierce with me. "Do you even know what that stuff is? And you just injected it." I shrugged. "No idea. Anyway, I have a special constitution. This stuff doesn't get absorbed." Back at the door, I just, let out a few discreet puffs and expelled it all. Annie finally relaxed and shot me an exasperated glare. Annie was casually assigned to a small room, while I was led to a lavishly decorated one. Inside, a lazy dog was lounging. Its fur was sleek and shiny. Clearly, it lived a good life. When I entered, the dog bared its teeth at me aggressively. I smiled at the underboss who brought me in. "This little doggy seems to have good teeth." The underboss's mouth twitched visibly. He rolled his eyes at me. "That's not a dog. It's a wolf the boss tamed named Patton. The boss said you should keep Patton company for a while until he gets back. Patton's used to eating human flesh, so you better be careful." I studied this underboss carefully. He was tall, with a deep scar near the corner of his eye. Though his eyes looked fierce, his soul, like Annie's, glowed with the golden light of virtue. "My name is Donnie. If you need anything here, you can find me." I asked Donnie expectantly, "Do you know Boss Shaw's real name?" If I knew Shaw's real name, I could kill him in minutes. Donnie shook his head. "In all of northern Myanmar, probably no one knows except Boss Shaw himself." My face fell with disappointment. "Then I don't need anything." Donnie took a couple of steps, then turned back to advise me. Without the boss's command, Patton won't attack easily. Just stay still, don't approach him, and you'll last until the boss gets back. I answered meekly. Don't worry, I'll be very good. As soon as Donnie left, I splashed a nearby glass of water on Patton. Patton, startled by the water, stalked towards me gracefully, letting out a warning growl. I walked right over and smacked it on the head. This bunker really was a great place. Even this mere wolf carried a lot of bad karma. Patton was furious. It bared its teeth and charged at me, eyes fixed on me, a low growl rumbling in its throat. I stood my ground. When it lunged to pounce on me, I reached out and pried its jaws open. Patton drooled in humiliation, revealing its fangs. What a fine set of teeth. I smiled with satisfaction. When Boss Shaw opened the door, the first thing he saw was me squatting on the floor, sharpening teeth. Patton's teeth. Patton, whose teeth I had forcibly extracted, cowered in the corner, head tilted, whimpering in shame and anger. His men, seeing the scene, were all completely dumbfounded. Boss Shaw's expression didn't change much, but after a moment he squeezed out a few words through gritted teeth. Good. Very good. He took a deep breath, grabbed me by the collar, and dragged me out of the room, also calling for Annie. I broke free from Boss Shaw's grip and ran to take Annie's hand. Her hair was a bit disheveled. She must have encountered some trouble too. But her clothes were neat, so it couldn't have been too bad. Boss Shaw took us to the main hall, where his men dragged in a bald man covered in blood. The moment the bald man saw Boss Shaw, he fell to his knees, kowtowing repeatedly and begging, I'll never do it again, boss. Please, for all the years I've been with you, spare my worthless life. Boss Shaw didn't even glance at the bald man, casually fiddling with a knife in his hand. Done playing, he lazily looked up at me. Little thing, use this knife and cut off his right hand for me. I caught the knife he tossed me, flicked the tip, and said, this knife isn't sharp enough. I'll use the wolf fang I just sharpened. A bloodthirsty excitement flashed across my face. I took out the sharpened fang I'd pulled from Patton and slowly approached the bald man. Miss, please let me go, I beg you. Arg. I plunged the wolf fang knife into his wrist and with a strong pull, severed his hand. The scene was quite graphic. Blood splattered on my face, contrasting with my innocent smile. Everyone was stunned. Except Boss Shaw. A sudden laugh echoed through the hall. Boss Shaw looked at me with amusement, praised my work, and asked what reward I wanted. I thought for a moment. There wasn't really anything I wanted, so I turned to Annie. Annie said, I want to see this bunker. Boss Shaw agreed. Annie's suggestion was a good one. It allowed me to see all the evil within this bunker. I saw many young girls dressed like dolls, all with the same desperate eyes and numb expressions, having lost all will to live. I saw young boys, fresh as flower buds, who were periodically sent to various wealthy merchants. Like the girls, they were tools for Boss Shaw's business dealings. I also saw many able-bodied adults kept captive. When the time was right, their organs would be sold worldwide. And I saw old people tending poppy flowers in the garden, their faces excited and ecstatic, lovingly nurturing their treasures. Finally, Boss Shaw showed us the most horrifying place in the bunker. He called it the execution chamber. Inside, a bloody figure hung on a cross. It took me a while to realize it was a man. There wasn't an inch of undamaged skin on his body. He was a bloody mess. Various iron torture instruments hung around, each used on the man in rotation daily. I saw Annie's grip on my hand tighten, her eyes instantly reddening. He used to go through hell and back with me. I considered him a brother. But I never imagined he was a cop. He ruined one of my most important trade routes. Boss Shaw's face showed a complex mix of ruthlessness and nostalgia. A henchman brought out a cup of chilly water and poured it on him. Arg! The man regained some consciousness, looked up at us disdainfully, his gaze lingering on Annie for a moment before quickly darting away. He made muffled, whimpering sounds, and only then did we realize his tongue had been cut out. I hadn't spoken because I was blinded by the sheer virtue radiating from this bloodied man. The golden light of his soul was stronger than Annie's, stronger than Donnie's, stronger than many I had ever seen. Many years ago, I had seen another bloodied person with such an intense golden light. An almost identical scene. I couldn't remember her name anymore. I only remembered she was a woman with the surname Liu, and she had short hair. Boss Shaw told me to take a bath and then dine with him. Afraid someone might hurt Annie, I held on to her and wouldn't let go. Boss Shaw chuckled and said since she was just a playmate anyway, Annie could accompany me. Once in the changing room, after confirming there were no cameras, Annie gritted her teeth and knelt before me. Hella, I beg you help me. I helped Annie up and told her to speak slowly. Annie fought back tears. The bloodied man in the execution chamber. He's my brother. My suspicion confirmed, I immediately asked, do you want to save him? No. I want you to help him find release. Annie wiped the tears from her face. I knew that look in my brother's eyes just now. Back at the police academy, we swore an oath to sacrifice everything to protect the people. My brother said if he ever fell into criminals' hands, he'd rather die cleanly than be a burden to anyone. Annie sniffled, looking at me with determination. Hella, his real name is Ethan. And my name is Annie. If that day ever comes and I fall into Shaw's hands, I hope you'll help me too. I gently placed my handful of soap bubbles into the warm water. They were light, white, and fragile. Ethan, within 1 minute, will die naturally in his sleep, in a beautiful dream he desires. The bubbles popped. Annie plunged her head into the water, letting the salty tears from her eyes merge with the warmth. At a large dining table, Boss Shaw patted the chair beside him. Little thing, come sit here. Patton snuggled at Boss Shaw's feet, gnawing on something familiar. Looking closer, I realized it was the hand I'd cut off the bald man. Seeing me approach, Patton flinched and silently moved a little further away. I didn't sit in the chair next to Boss Shaw, but snuggled directly into his lap. Boss Shaw raised an eyebrow, one hand instinctively steadying me so I wouldn't fall. I played with the delicate necklace around his neck for a moment, then firmly gripped his chin like a feisty little lioness. Which woman gave you this necklace? Boss Shaw chuckled softly. Little thing, jealous of my mother now, I took a sip of red wine from his hand. Boss Shaw stared at me for a moment, a new fondness in his eyes. At first, when I heard what happened with you and Leo, I thought you were a cop. He stroked my smooth hair. But now that we've spent some time together, I think you're more like a thief. The kind that steals hearts. I pouted in his arms. TSK, my irresistible charm. Still, he had a good physique. Better than the male models I used to pay for. I wasn't losing out. Boss Shaw trusted me more and more, starting to take me to various events. Every day, he'd give me a syringe on time and watch me inject it. And I'd just blatantly puff it out in front of him. As for Annie's dose, Donnie administered it personally. I saw the quick glances exchanged between those two and knew Annie would be fine. I didn't understand police matters, so when we were alone, I just relayed everything I saw and heard to Annie, word for word. Boss Shaw adored me but didn't like Annie. But with me around, no one could hurt her. Days passed like this, and I stayed by Boss Shaw's side for a full year. This broke the record for any woman who had been with him. He gave me a pigeon's egg diamond ring, and everyone started calling me Mrs. Shaw. Then one day, he started saying he wanted a child from me. I thought he was just talking, but I didn't expect him to actually start making plans. Plans to stop my medication once he was done with his current busy spell, help me get healthy, and then take me traveling around the world. He even said he'd give me a grand wedding. Of course, as the bunker's alarms blared, all of this became an illusion. Based on the clues Annie provided, the police finally cracked several of Boss Shaw's major trafficking rings. They surrounded the place, preparing to catch Boss Shaw and his gang in one fell swoop. But the bunker was too fortified, and with so many innocent people inside, they couldn't breach it. Meanwhile, Boss Shaw had a helicopter ready at some point, allowing him to escape anytime. But before he left, he wanted to humiliate Annie in front of all the police, trampling on their dignity. I had just run to the bunker's terrace when I saw one of Boss Shaw's men grab Annie by the hair, kick her to the ground, and start slamming her head against the floor. There was already a large pool of blood on the ground. Donnie lunged forward, trying to restrain Boss Shaw, but was shot in the calf. Our location was a blind spot those below could see a little, but snipers had no clear shot. Boss Shaw forcefully held me in his arms. Little thing, we'll settle our scores later. But right now you need to see clearly. We are the same kind of people. You'll just watch with me how these two cops are tortured to death, bit by bit. Annie saw me appear and, enduring the pain, shouted, "Hella, don't forget what I told you. My name is Annie." Watching this, I felt incredibly agitated. Shut up. When I get agitated, people die. Annie, you listen to me. You are not allowed to die. You have to live, and live well. I touched Boss Shaw's hand, a cold smile playing on my lips. Your real name is Sean, isn't it? Sean, you will be shot dead by the police, effective immediately. The words had barely left my mouth when a bullet whizzed past my ear. The man behind me fell, his eyes wide with disbelief and unwillingness to die. He died never knowing that his underestimation of me and the necklace his mother gave him were his undoing. All the markings on that necklace, when combined, formed the Mayan glyph for Sean. Taking advantage of the chaos from Sean's sudden death, the police stormed in. I kicked every henchman who attacked me off the terrace, one by one. Annie, with all her strength, managed to subdue the goon behind her. As for Donnie, he had passed out at some point. Oh, and you. I gave a gentle smile to Patton, who was trembling in the corner. The next second, it too became a graceful arc in the air. With me around, not a single criminal would escape. Not even a guilty wolf. All the innocent people in the bunker were rescued. They hugged each other, crying in relief. The young men and women stared blankly at the sunlight pouring down, crying and laughing in front of everyone. The rescued adults also shed tears of joy for surviving the ordeal. Some had just wanted to find work in northern Myanmar. Others had argued with their families and, hearing northern Myanmar was paved with gold, came to make their fortunes. And some came to meet online girlfriends, only to find their beauty was a gangster with a gold chain. Regardless, after this experience, they realized that having a healthy body was better than anything. Only the old people who tended the poppies, upon seeing the police burn their meticulously cultivated plants, acted like they wanted to fight the police to the death, completely forgetting they too had been brought there against their will. Seeing the police's patient persuasion had no effect, I grabbed them one by one and threw them into the police vans. Let them cause trouble at the rehab center. Annie returned home, carrying her brother's ashes. Before leaving, Annie asked if I wanted to go with her, but I refused. Although the cancer that was Sean had been removed, northern Myanmar was still filled with a dense miasma of resentment. The evil here was endless. And wherever there is evil, there I hella will be. I traversed every inch of northern Myanmar. Every place I passed, a criminal gang was uprooted. Eventually, the remaining few cried and begged me, asking what it would take for me to leave. I looked at them blankly. Leave? Why would I leave? Leaving is impossible. Not in this lifetime. I haven't got this temper thing down yet. So a little light cursing here and there? That's just me making a living. Besides, being in northern Myanmar feels like coming home. Everyone in this land is so talented, and they talk so sweetly. I absolutely love the people here. The only thing that bothered me was Annie coming back to see me whenever she had free time. This time she'd be a dancer, the next time some gang boss's newly adopted goddaughter. It made me think for ages about what to call her each time. She said she mainly came to see me, and do a few small tasks on the side. Sometimes I wouldn't see her for months, and I'd worry if something had happened to her. So annoying. When I get annoyed, people die. And so, continuous screams began to echo throughout northern Myanmar again. Was it the annihilation of humanity or the collapse of morality? The main reason for the near extinction of northern Myanmar's gangs turned out to be a woman of many identities. The end.